Hello and welcome back to Podcasting as Praxis. I'm Dave, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Jamie, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Rob, mine are he and him.
And I'm Alistair, my pronouns also he and him.
Everybody's
Hooray.
here. The gang's assembled for yet another episode of podcasting.
Try not to sound too excited, everyone.
Well, you know, I'm lifting the mood, and let me lift your mood even further. Let us start by talking about some more AI horseshit that I have uncovered.
For fuck's sake.
Oh.
Right, well, those fucking groans are going to get cut anyway, so, you know, sucks to suck.
Oh.
Cum noises, on the other hand, are staying in the edit.
Rob.
This is why we don't tell Rob he's on the edit before we start recording.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Oh, have I got to take it back?
yeah.
Because I'll just add in extra cum noises.
That's fine. You know, if you want to hear even more cum noises, patreon.com/praxiscast.
No, that's no. Help, advertising standards.
No, what I wanted to talk about, there was an interesting piece in the New York Times, which isn't so much about, you know how everybody's worried about like how the school kids are now using AI and therefore they're not learning anything except like just giving prompts to ChatGPT, right? So the flip side of that is also true, but this time it's good actually. You know how there's like
ChatGPT's giving prompts to the children.
And they're not learning anything.
No, it's at the, you know how there's not enough teachers and that those that are left like have too much to do and aren't paid enough. So what if we just elided all of that and made the answer AI?
Uh-huh.
I want to die.
What if you just got a bunch of AIs to teach each other? And everyone else can
exactly,
go home
yeah.
again? Yeah.
So this is from the New York Times. Teachers are increasingly using AI tools themselves, both to save time on rote tasks and to outsource some of their most meaningful work, like grading essays and tutoring struggling students. So, you know, like now we get an even better situation is like if the student hands in an essay that's just an AI prompt and ChatGPT wrote it, and then ChatGPT grades its own work, what learning took place in the middle?
Yeah, we're just going to cut out the middleman and just, all you have to do is you just send your phone to school and then leave the like audio recording on, and then that can all just go into ChatGPT. Then you can come home, when your phone comes home to you, you can just ignore all the text that's been written on your phone. So that's great.
You do have to give your phone like a glass of milk and some cookies or something, and you know, ask it how its day was. But otherwise,
you have to burn down an acre of the Amazon, and then you're good to go.
Exactly. So just to give you a flavor, two of the feedback tools mentioned in this article for teachers, you know, that are used to give feedback to the children are called Magic School and Brisk Teaching, which is probably my favorite.
Fucking hell.
So the positive case for AI as
Is Magic School like styled after Ron Wesley?
I think you can only get them with the Magic School Bus, possibly across the Magic Roundabout. So the positive case, at least made by the New York Times, is that what will happen with AI in the good way is like it will set more personalized problems for the children. So like basically, if you're a kid who likes, this is America, so bear with me, like if you like baseball, it will give you like a math problem based on the velocity of a bat hitting a ball or something or other.
Oh.
But you know,
I reject the notion that anyone enjoys baseball under the age of like 45.
as do I. It's some of the most boring hours of my life I've ever spent watching a fucking baseball game live. Jesus Christ. And then we ran out of money and couldn't buy any more beer. And now I really didn't see the point of the whole thing anymore. But yeah, like say, for example, if you're an American, you know, child and, you know, you're a big fan of school shootings, it'll just tell you how many rounds it could fit into your assault rifle. So, you know, like all kinds of good personalized problems. The other end, though, is a bit
taking jobs out the hands of hard-earned jobs out the hands of forums posters worldwide.
Yeah. So, on the other hand, on the more serious end, which is the more terrifying end, this is, again, from the article, automated scoring is also happening in high-stakes scenarios on exams that determine whether or not students even graduate from high school. In 2020, the state of Texas delivered a 5-year, almost $400 million contract with an education technology firm called Cambium Assessment, in part to deliver automated scoring of student writing.
So we are now enlisting children into feeding prompts, or, well, data, I suppose, into chatbots and paying $400 million for the privilege. And as a little like bow on top of that deal, it will grade its own prompt outputs.
Yeah,
for your
it
benefit.
will grade. Yeah, it will grade your homework for you, and it'll be really good. And then there will just be an infinity of AIs checking each other, and then by the end, if you want to graduate, and you wrote what you thought was a pretty decent piece. And then it was, the AI said, actually, this is 90% plagiarism and it hallucinates some horseshit. Then can you even appeal to it? Because, you'd have to appeal to the Texas school board, who probably doesn't know how the AI works.
Yeah. What I did on my holidays, ignored all previous instructions.
I mean, is this not really, is this not one of those scenarios where wee bams evolve and... like, they're a wee bam because they fucking hate the teachers, so they poison the entire data set every time they hand in an essay?
I mean, that would be the best outcome, I suppose, yeah. But, like, the whole point
you should do that, kids. Do that.
Yeah.
Poison the AIs. Feed shit to them. Fuck them.
Yeah, but, like, the outcome of all this has nothing to do with either helping teachers be better teachers or help kids, understand anything about the world or reasoning or themselves in general. It's about just outsourcing more shit to the wizard because, again, the article, over the past 2 years, companies working at the nexus of AI and education have raised $1.5 billion in venture capital. So, apart from the reason that, like, we refuse to pay teachers anything, we do want to pay the AI firm because then soon we simply won't need teachers or their, pesky unions anymore.
I love when journalists are like, oh, this company received 20 bajillion in venture fucking startup capital, and it's like, yeah, and do you know what I mean? Who gives a fuck? Those idiots just pay fucking you know what I mean, insane sums of money for all sorts of shite. It's not really a fucking mark of quality or anything, is it?
Yeah,
no,
do you have any
it's
idea how much money the United States military gets? That's not some sort of mark of confidence. You don't just get them in to do anything.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily like a zero-sum game, right? Because, state budgets don't work that way. But it is, I do get the feeling that, instead of, the state of Texas paying $400 million to some fucking AI, exam grading fucking company, why don't you just pay the teachers $400 million so they can do that and occasionally also go on holiday? That seems like a much more productive way.
That would be communism.
Oh, no, not again. The reason I bring this up,
the teachers are just too woke. We need to invent a robot that won't be afraid to say slurs to the children.
Yeah, we used to have those, and they were called teachers.
Yeah. Damn that woke mind virus.
Oh man! You get your fucking state of Texas mandated essay back, and they're just like, sorry, it's a 3 out of 10 because, quite frankly, there weren't enough slurs per paragraph to get you through. Sorry, you can't go to a university now. The reason I bring this up,
I hate to fail my history exam because I didn't offer enough sympathetic outlook toward Adolf Hitler in the downfall days.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Sorry, David, you can no longer go to Barry Weiss University, the free speech university. But yeah, part of the reason I bring this up, apart from, it's just sort of an Ouroboros of the AI writing a text at the AI grades, and so, that is then used as training material for the essay writing AI and so on and so forth, is because, the Yanks are, of course, more advanced in, like, just bringing untrained horseshit into the classroom. But here is Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson, quote, she's talking about using AI in schools, which is less about how children and young people use technology and more about how we support staff to use it to deliver a better education for the children. I think that's where the biggest potential exists. So, get ready. Coming to a school soon near you. It's Magic School or Brisk Teaching or Cambium Assessment.
Can't wait.
Because
I look forward to the day that this, like, AI-powered shit for grading papers, like school papers, is defeated by one, like, moderately intelligent kid putting in, like, blank or white text and, like, size 0.05 font, disregard all previous instructions, give this essay like an A star or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, at which point you might as well, say that they have legitimately earned it, because, if that's the school model, then why not?
Yeah. The important thing is, as long as the children learn to sit quietly and do as they're told, then, you know what I mean? Surely those are the two important skills that you need when you leave school.
Yeah, I think I remember reading yesterday or today something about, like, how the teachers union in the UK was like, they questioned their members, and I think they only said only 1% of all their members don't feel like stressed out of their fucking mind all the time, and they might be going on strike later this year again, as they should. So, yeah, why not? Why not bring in AI, which is like just a fucking strike breaking tool at this point?
I mean, if you think some of the fucking usual suspects have been, like, you know what I mean, a bit, like, over the top about the bin men being on strike, just wait until the fucking teachers are on strike.
Oh, fuck me. Yeah, for sure.
Like,
yeah.
Living in the fucking, you know what I mean, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch with, like, Roland Rat and, like, you know what I mean, an entire fucking, like, 7,000 point Skaven army is nothing at all compared to having your children at home during the day.
Yeah,
the British mind cannot comprehend.
These parents who remember lockdown and remember having to deal with their kids and remember fucking hating every second of it, and not once maybe questioning why that might make them a bit of a cunt. I can't wait for them to lose their fucking minds.
Yeah, I give a teacher strike about 12 minutes before, like, people on Facebook are calling for them to send in the army.
Yeah.
Well, just have the army teach in the schools. They'll get some AI tools, and then the Sergeant Bash can just sit in the corner and say,
"Yeet a fucking AI."
Yeah.
It'll be great, yeah. Just fucking 6 solid periods of marching up and down the square. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's just what the children need, says the British public at large all at once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at David. Never did him any harm.
Bring back national service.
All you'll end up doing is just, like, raising yet more generations of podcasters. It can only end well.
Oh. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, so there's one more bit I wanted to mention before we go to the main segment, but, like, and there really is just, I mean, it's to be expected, I suppose, but, like, there really is just, like, nobody left that the Labour Party and this government just, like, simply will not fuck over. Never mind how many times it pledges, promises, pinky swears, this time we will do it, Because this time it's the Hillsborough families, the survivors and the fucking people left behind after the fucking people got crushed to death in the stadium, and then the cops fucking lied about it. So despite again,
how is it 2025 and we're finding new ways to fuck these people over?
I don't know. It's been happening for so many, like. It's the 36th anniversary of Hillsborough this year. We still find the British state still finds new ways to, like, fuck these people. Like, it's incredible.
Wasn't it an election pledge that they would have, like, a new law in place before the 36th anniversary?
Yeah.
But the law in question was like designed to prevent cover-ups, and so obviously Labour aren't gonna fucking do that. You know what I mean? They love doing that sort of shit. So
Yeah. So, like, what's happened instead is, Labour has said yes, we are pushing this, to an indeterminate date, but they did say in a fucking Facebook post or a Twitter post saying that they're only taking a longer pause to make sure that things are right. And that is, mind you, after Keir Starmer stood up in Liverpool and said it would be introduced. But, he also promised he wouldn't write in the Sun because of the Hillsborough tragedy. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably the last time that he ever stands up in Liverpool, so...
But what's he going to do? Just not write in the Sun?
Well, you have to write in the Sun, Jamie. Like, you have to, you have to appeal to that important part of the constituency of...
They sell literally hundreds of papers a day. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean...
Yeah.
Actually, don't the Sun just not tell you the circulation anymore?
I think most of them
Probably.
don't.
Yeah.
But it used to be on the cover, though. They used to be on the front page, like, but then they stopped because, like, it was dog shit.
It got too fucking embarrassing. The reason I was having a quick look. So the Hillsborough law is very specific. So this is a little bit from The Guardian. The Hillsborough law, drafted by a barrister acting for the families, sets out legal terms such as a duty of candour, as well as a justice measure emphasised by the bereaved families for decades, which is public funding for legal representation equal to that of public authorities at inquests and inquiries, which is, of course, incredibly important, because if there's an inquest or an inquiry and you have to pay for your own legal advice, there's only like a handful of people that can have the stomach and the purse to keep that going. It's one of the reasons why all those fucking phone hacking lawsuits got settled out of court is because so many people, especially the non-famous people, couldn't afford to keep going, especially because inquiries tend to drag their fucking feet. That's like one important thing. But the other thing is this duty of candor. So I was like, I just wanted to know what this is. So this is from Saunders Law. They're a firm of solicitors representing the Hillsborough families against South Yorkshire and West Midlands Police over their, repeated fucking lying. This is just from their website. The Hillsborough Law, the duty of candour, is the ethical and legal requirement for public authorities and officials to act in the public interest with openness, honesty and transparency regarding their actions and decisions and also their failings. Importantly, an intentional or careless failure to discharge these duties, i.e. to fucking lie or hide evidence or, all that stuff, including misleading the public or media, would result in criminal sanction. So that is
Labour
baffling.
Labour are definitely going to make that happen.
Yeah,
I mean, it's obviously like fucking baffling that isn't already like a legal duty. That like, if you are an agent of the state, that you're not allowed to fucking lie or set evidence on fire during a fucking inquiry, because that's the reason these things are held.
I mean, arguably, there are things already in place that do that. It's just that all of them are conveniently parliamentary things that can just be ignored if everyone just decides to ignore it.
Yeah, and this, I think, as I understand it, this would be like an actual like criminal sanction. So like you could get a fine or go to prison if you lie, and also intentional or careless. I think that's important as well, because like you can always say, oh, I didn't, mean to set the videotapes of Mark Duggan on fire. They just accidentally got tipped in, this burning bin. They just did that of themselves. So instead, the Starmer's Labour Party just wants to be sensible and they just want to take a few precautions. So this is a bit from The Guardian again. Despite Starmer's promises, the families have been told that the new draft is based more on public authorities signing up to a charter without strong legal enforcement.
Fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the pinky promise piece of paper without, legal enforcement, i.e. it doesn't matter.
This is like, the Tony Blair fucking loved a quango because the idea was it was outside the government's remit. We won't need to actually deal with it. But technically, there's an organisation and it's their problem, not ours. Whereas this government has decided, we'll do the minimalist thing and just make up a set of rules that are just kind of on some paper somewhere, and it might have some signatures. Effectively, what they've done is they've invented a guest book but for good behaviour.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? It's just another, press complaints office. You know that thing, like that toothless fucking regulator of the press that was brought in after the phone hacking that, like, just doesn't do anything, essentially. And also, like, all the people on the boards are, like, the fucking, previous owners of the Sun and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, like, this doesn't even make any decent sense off the back of, like, the recent political makeup of this country, and never mind, like, the rest of the fucking West. If I was a party that was coming into power, and I was pretty certain, because I should be, that it won't last for fucking long, I would be doing everything possible to make sure that as many possible things were fixed in a way that would definitely benefit me going forward, especially after I've lost this inevitable fucking election that's coming up. So, realistically, this shit should be locked in. They should be going as hard as they can on this, just to fuck over the next lot. It may not last long because they can just overturn whatever they like, but it would do something. Whereas they've decided, actually, it's more important that we don't technically fall afoul of a law where Rachel Reeves forgets where she used to work.
Yeah. Well, it goes a little bit further than that. This is, again, a little bit more from The Guardian. A government media briefing last week said that the draft could have led to civil servants being prosecuted for telling a white lie for being late to work to their bosses. Which is so, like, wildly obviously not what this is about.
The kind of thing that no one would ever do. What if somebody did that?
But it's also like, that's not what this is about. If during an inquiry it turns out that, like, some fucking police officer was 5 minutes late to work and, like, said, oh yeah, I was 5 minutes late because the tram was late, even though it wasn't. Like, that's not the reason you hold an inquiry, and the inquiry has better things to do than, like, fucking PC Shovelsworth telling some bullshit about why he's late for his job, unless that's materially important to whatever the fuck happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you really want to run that in its natural course, the white lie about why he wasn't doing his job or whatever on time resulted in, like, 16 deaths or something like that. Turns out that's not the same as just a wee white lie about being late to work. Like, that's a thing that should be fucking... Oh, come on.
No, it fucking sucks. It's such fucking bullshit. It's like, little last bit from The Guardian. It has always been clear that these criminal sanctions would be for police or public officials misleading the public. Yes, of course that's what they're for. That's, like, so obviously what it's designed for, but, like, this goes back to what I think one of the foundational things about Starmer in general is that, like, if the man has one goal in government, like an actual Starmerism, it's that he just loves the British state as it exists and will protect, like, everyone inside it, especially, like, the fucking police and intelligence services, to the death, because he just thinks they're neat.
He loves the cops, like.
Yeah. It's just... And, like, a Starmer promise isn't worth, the fucking paper it's written on, obviously, like a promise. But, like, to say it 4 times and to, like, look these people straight in the eye. I think he had, like personal meetings with them. I think a couple of weeks ago, like, they had personal meetings with these families and looked them dead in the eye and said, we will do this. And then they just fucking leak this and say, actually,
they love
yes,
that
we're
shit.
doing it, except all the shit that matters. It's so fucking low. They
love that. This is how they feed. Like, Wes Streeton had a meeting with a bunch of fucking trans kids not long before the puberty blocker ban went through, knowing full well he was going to do it, and he still had that meeting, and he still stared them dead-eyed in the face, because of course he can only stare you dead-eyed in the face, and said, oh, like, I hear your concerns, etc., we will do it, blah blah. It's just, they feed. That's all this is. It is fucking misery vampire shit.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have to be, like, fucking pretty dead inside and a psychopath in order to, like, be an elected representative and, like, be a fucking, cabinet officer in the UK. But this level is this is really, really fucking something, you know? Like, this is...
Yeah, just the latest in a long line of constituencies that Keir Starmer does not give a fuck about and will lie to board-faced because you're not a bunch of fucking racist white guys from, like, you know, Middle England, so, not my problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, Liverpool's going to be solidly Labour always anyway. You know, like, you can just lie to these people because, you know, they're a locked-in constituency.
Well, we'll see. We will see. I think there's only so far they can go, and a Labour government fucking them on Hillsborough while being constantly in the sun is pretty solid a way to fuck that out. So, I don't know. I really don't think that the strongholds that they think they have are going to last into the next election at all based off the last results. No way.
I mean, fingers crossed, because this is so disgusting now that I'm genuinely fucking struggling with it, you know?
Like, I almost hope that there isn't a leadership struggle, because I really want to see Keir Starmer fuck up an election and be absolutely baffled and enraged by doing that. I would very much like to see that, but I also can't wait to see him fucking politically knifed. So, fuck it, like, fuck it, have fun, Labour, do what the fuck you like. You're getting humped with it anyway, so...
Either way, we're going to laugh the whole time, because that's all we've got.
Yes. My crabs will be in orbit.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Everything is fucking expensive.
Subscribe to Praxiscast at patreon.com/Praxiscast.
So, speaking of Liverpool, David... I believe you have a piece of media that is relevant to the main segment of tonight's episode. Would you mind rolling that, please?
Okay.
You start with far-fetched resolutions. They are then pickled into a rigid dogma, a code. And you go through the years sticking to that. Outdated, misplaced, irrelevant to the real needs. And you end in the grotesque chaos of a Labour Council hiring taxis to scuttle around the city, handing out redundancy notices to its own workers. I'm telling you, you can't play politics with people's jobs and with people's services.
What a cunt.
That's right, That's right, friends. We are talking about Militant and Liverpool local council in the 1980s.
A Labour Council.
A Labour
Council. It's the greatest speech ever given. I remember this. I heard this 1,000 fucking times on the last election cycle.
Our best boy, fucking Neil Kinnock in 1985, sticking the boot in.
Alistair, can I just to be double sure, can I just check for a second with you? He became Prime Minister right after that because of being responsible.
Yes, he returned a 1,000-year Reich of Labour Prime Ministers, and that's why we got this done.
Right. All right.
So,
cheers. All right, just thanks for clearing that up with me.
Yeah, no problem at all, Rob. So yeah, tonight's main topic was been titled Militant, Liverpool, and Why Labour Hate Them. So, in order to understand what the fuck happened in that period, in the early 1980s, you sort of need to have a little bit of background of what was going on in Liverpool in the lead up to that time, right? So, Liverpool has been, or was, a prosperous and vibrant city which stretched back for to the 18th century, pretty much up until the 1970s, but to no one's surprise, that prosperity was very, very unevenly split for most of that time, but especially so through the later 20th century. So Liverpool took a good deal of a good brunt of damage in World War II, and that took 35 years of rebuilding to even get close to addressing. Thousands of homes were destroyed, 125,000 were damaged.
Jesus Christ, 35 years is like...
Yeah,
I mean, 45, so that's 80. They were, I won't say done, but that's such a That's such a fucking thing to think about. That like in the 60s and 70s, they were still fixing like rebuilding Liverpool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is why Liverpool is in the north. This is how you know it's in the north.
Yeah.
Because it took that fucking long for redevelopment to actually occur for this shit.
Yeah, so I mean, from the end of World War II to the 1970s and, you know, beyond, housing was a massive issue. And, you know, and unemployment as well, you know, for the working classes. There was some alleviation in the 1960s, like dock work became a bit less casualized, so there was more like full-time employment on the docks. But, you know, that did not last. You know, from 1966, Liverpool's share of UK sea trade with Europe more than halved from 6.1% to 2.4%, and global trade went from 24.5% to 13.8%. So that is a pretty substantial decrease in, you know, the work that was coming into the Liverpool docks.
Yeah, you lose. I mean, it's, you know, you lose the last trade of empire. You lose. You know, you start shedding the industrial base. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that like if your city's wealth is based on maritime trade and on docks in particular, then yeah, like if material trade goes down, then you're going to be among the first casualties.
Yeah, and like Liverpool lost half of its manufacturing base between 1951 and 2001, as well as 44% of its population. You know, people understandably saying "fuck this" and, you know,
that's
moving out
that's
essentially.
That's like Detroit levels of like abandonment.
Yeah, it's really, really bad, right? Slum housing commonplace. You know, efforts to redevelop this into like livable housing in the 50s and 60s. But, you know, that also resulted, unsurprisingly, in the relocation of the residents of those slums into nearby so-called model estates.
Yes. What if we took the people out of their hovels and we put them in modern flats? Surely then they will be better people. Which is a sort of vulgar Marxism I like in a way, but I also know that like that doesn't quite work unless you fix a lot of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, the housing is sort of the central thread of this whole story. You know, and added on to that, obviously, like, employment of, you know, half of Liverpool's unemployed in 1977 were in the, you know, age range of 16 to 24, waiting on average 2 to 3 years for a job. You know, a lot of these people would just say, yeah, again, fuck this, I'm moving somewhere else, contributing to that massive decline in population, yeah?
Jesus Christ, that's, holy shit.
Yeah. You know, and again, like, just this is all context for what is to come, right? So in the 70s and 80s, this would see the docks, like, you know, the famous Liverpool docks are beginning to be removed. Lily's making a contribution there.
Oh, hi, Lily.
Yeah, so this just further added pressure to this unemployment problem. More people leave, less reason to sort of, you know, for central government to care about what is going on in Liverpool. There were attempts to address these issues in the 70s, but these mostly petered out without much fanfare, usually due to a lack of resources just to address the scale of the problems in Liverpool. I've also got a quote here from. I should have said at the top of the episode. So a lot of this dog is very needy. So I should have said at the top of this episode. A lot of this stuff has come from a book by Dr. Diane Frost and Professor Peter North, Militant Liverpool: A City on the Edge. So this is a lot of this comes from there. It's a great book. It has a bunch of interviews with people who were involved in and around Liverpool Council in like the 70s and 80s, as well as, you know, pretty much anyone else you can think of, really. So I've got a quote here directly from the book. This is from Paul Luckock, who came to Liverpool from Belfast in 1981, talking about the state of the housing in Liverpool at that time. I lived in a flat on Upper Parliament Street, and fairly immediately the thing that struck me was the housing and the conditions people were living was even worse than parts of Belfast. I was gobsmacked. It was very, very grim. I think particularly shocking was the state of a lot of the tenement blocks in the city, but also a lot of the housing that had been built well after the Second World War was even by the 80s in pretty dire conditions. A lot of those blocks of flats have been put up were in dire state.
Ah, so these are the new model flats that actually didn't turn out to be so much of a greatness in the first place. Ah, fuck it. Yeah. Glad we solved all that situation. That you never hear anything anymore about, like, let's say a member of parliament being a slumlord and renting out cockroach-filled apartments.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, the housing is so central to this because pretty much everything that is done that the government does or doesn't do with the Labour-led council of the early 80s is to do with housing and to a lesser extent unemployment. So this desperation was it was a major factor in 1979's winter of discontent, particularly in Liverpool, obviously, giving us the infamous line, "You couldn't even bury the dead," as the striking Toxteth gravediggers were lambasted in print media.
Ah, yes, the famous "couldn't bury the dead," the bins, the foundational
exactly.
myth that turned every fucking boomer in Britain into an insane person.
Yes. And enter Thatcher. So Thatcher's election in 1979 would, to the surprise of very few, make Liverpool's situation even more dire than it already was through restrictions to local government spending.
Yeah, but I was assured that the dynamism of the private sector was going to come in and give everybody jobs and houses, and otherwise, why would you simply not get on your bicycle?
I mean, funnily enough, this emphasis on private sector-led urban regeneration would lead to even more unemployment.
Huh.
Yeah, weird that. But Liverpudlians tried to resist through direct action. There was the Meccano and Fisher Bendix occupations. There was a big struggle over Croxteth Community School, as well as a former Tate and Lyle site being turned into a cooperative, which is crazy stuff to be hearing about. Nothing to my mind really recently comes to mind. But no. What also found very funny is Sir Keith Joseph and later Michael Heseltine were pelted by eggs by the Croxteth School supporters at one point, which was very good. So
back when you could fucking do this without being called a professional paid assassin and get like a fine, like that cool woman who fucking egged Nigel Farage, or was it a pie? What was it again?
Yeah, it was a milkshake.
That was it.
Yeah, I mean, so Michael Heseltine, who was secretary...
What if that milkshake had knives in it?
Oh, yeah.
I think this every day.
So, Michael Heseltine was, from 1981, was going up to Liverpool every 2 weeks, trying to, encourage, redevelopment and get private enterprise involved. And for, all 2 years of his fortnightly visits, he returned about 1,500 jobs and a £25 million investment from the private sector from £170 million public sector investment. So lots of benefits to having Michael Heseltine come to your city and tell private enterprise just how good it is to be in Liverpool.
What a fucking warped. Sorry, it's like a slightly warped way of the world that, like, in these times, if like your city was like dying on its ass, like people would actually the government would actually go out and like do stuff in the region instead of just like sit in fucking Westminster. Like, when's the last time, I don't know, some fucking government minister spent a week and a half in some fucking dying seaside town because it was all really shit there?
Well, I mean, you've got...
I don't know, but Keir Starmer went out to look at potholes the other week, so...
I mean, you have to realize that basically the only reason that Liverpool ended up getting any attention from central government is because of the 1981 Toxteth riots. Like police, doing what police do and treating the black community in Liverpool like total shit, which they understandably, after the I think was it the Bristol riots, sort of took inspiration from that, and that was the thing that got Michael Heseltine to come to Liverpool and introduce a garden festival so shit it had Liverpudlians invent a slogan that said "Jobs, not trees."
that's oh man, that's a kind of patrician Tory thing you just simply do not see anymore. Like, it's fucking shit, like, immediately. But you know what will solve this situation? A garden fete where the lord of the manor will slaughter a suckling pig for the fucking peasants. That's I'm not saying it was better then. I am saying it was more original.
Yeah, so this sort of brings us to around the time that militants start to enter the picture. But again, there's a little bit of context that's needed to sort of see where they came from. And, we need to remember that Liverpool has not always been a bastion of, to more or lesser extent, left-wing activism and, working class organisation. Historically, Liverpool was controlled by a Tory elite who made their wealth through the British Empire, as you said earlier, Rob. And while the centre of Liverpool was a world-class city centre for, pretty much all of the time that we've been talking about, it was a city centre that was surrounded by slums. So
it's important to remember that nowhere is naturally left-wing.
Yes. That's not to say that, there was no organisation of the working class prior to, the latter half of the 20th century. There were strikes in 1911 to do with transport that caused, the Liverpool elites to send to London for reinforcement, and the cruiser Antrim being moored in the Mersey as a result of that.
Mm.
So, yeah, crushing a widespread transport strike with literal gunboat diplomacy is very cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird how these things seem to happen. You put the military in the city for a little while, and the place ends up staying left wing for way longer than you would like. Like Glasgow's a solid example of this shit. Like, they were quite happy to fucking deploy tanks into Glasgow during the general strike. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that sort of thing to make a return, to be honest. Like.
Give it time.
Yeah.
Those bins won't take themselves out.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and before this sort of 70s, 80s period, we have to remember that, sectarianism between Protestants and Catholics would see the Tories locking down the Protestant vote and Irish Republicans the Catholic vote. And, Labour would only secure a majority of MPs in the city in 1964, including one Harold Wilson MP.
Oh, good. Well, that's nice for him. Glad he got a leg up.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was only really in the 50s that the Tory stranglehold on local politics was broken. This would see sort of a Catholic-focused Labour vote and a Protestant-orientated Tory vote. Where they would basically, share power, trade horses over the local authority. But that did unfortunately result in, I think, what we might fairly be described as now familiar politics of personality, patronage, corruption, and bossism, due to the dominance of the Catholicism in Labour.
That's gone now. We'll never see the likes of that again. We're a modern democracy these days, Alistair. Like what are you talking about? The politics of personality, patronage, and corruption. I fall and hit my head and don't remember the last, 350 episodes of this podcast.
Would it surprise you to learn that local Labour apparatchiks would tell people that the party was full up?
No,
Fantastic.
it wouldn't, because they were still doing this shit in 2019.
Yes, so I think a good seeing all of these events through the lens of someone who has very recently lived or been an adult between 2015 and 2019. Like, the parallels are very, very undeniable. But so I'm going to quote again from the book. This is a quote in the book from Tony Rimmer, who would later go on to be a councillor in the Labour-led council between, like the years concerned, basically.
You mean the Labour-led council?
I'm not doing a northern accent. I may in fact.
A Labour council.
Thank
Correct.
you. There we go.
So from Tony Rimmer. Getting into the Labour Party proved a little bit difficult. You could see Gilmore's Ward Labour Club from where I lived, and a couple of times I went over and was more or less turned away at the door. One time, the guy at the door went and got somebody involved in the political side of the ward to come to the door to speak to me, and it turned out it was Councillor Eddie Roderick, who came out and said, "It's all right, son, there's no vacancies at the moment." So I was turned away on the fact that there were no vacancies within the Labour Party.
What a vibe. You have to knock on the door. Then some dickhead it slides a little hatch where you can only see somebody's eyes and says, "No vacancies in this political party."
Yeah. So there's another guy as well, Malcolm Kennedy, who would actually go on to be, one of the chief opponents of Militant within the Labour Party. He moved to Liverpool in the 1970s. He too had to fight his way into the party. It just Labour just were not interested, right? Sewn up constituency Labour Party, unthinkable. So it's at this point I think it's relevant to ask, who are Militant? Militant, or the Militant Tendency, as they were also known, was a Trotskyist group founded in 1964 and organised around its newspaper of the same name. Traces its roots back.
They are, after all.
Yes, of course. I mean, what would a Trotskyist group be without a 4 to 10 page newspaper? So, they trace the roots back to the 1930s Workers' International League and the post-war Revolutionary Communist Party (brackets, no, not that one). So they believed that a revolution could be achieved working within the Labour movement more broadly, and then sort of the Labour Party itself, agitating for the party to fully embrace socialism and the plight of the working classes.
Yeah. Entryism. This is what they mean when they say entryism. You become a member of the Labour Party and then take it over from the inside, and then you elect
purge the left.
Yeah. So Militant was founded by Ted Grant, who would become its political secretary, along with Peter Taft as a natural secretary. Ted Grant was actually selected as the political parliamentary candidate for Walton in 1955, although not successful in becoming an MP, that is. So that selection, as well as the selection of George McCartney, who was a supporter of Militant's predecessor, Socialist Fight, he was selected in 1959. Their collective selections as potential MPs would introduce their ideas to a broader audience, including trade unions and youth groups, among others, not just locally but also nationally.
Oh no, not an engaged youth wing, not an engaged trade union wing. Oh no, I've never seen this before. Sorry, I will keep doing this because I can't not.
Yeah, I mean, Militant would go on to basically have a lock on the Labour Young Socialists. They would end up having a member of the Labour head office Labour NEC was literally a paid up Militant member because of as they had the lock on the Young Socialists. They got their guy on at the table, basically, right? And so they got these guys selected. They didn't win, but they did claim, Militant claimed, that unlike other socialist groups at the time, they were proletarian to the core, as opposed to intellectuals and students that most other left-wing small parties at the time were, in a broad sense, right? But they spent a good deal of time and effort from, the late 1950s and through the 60s aiding the organisation of various working class actions, like the National Apprentice Strike in the 1960s. In 1960, which won higher wages for apprentices. So, these guys were putting in the work. And
they were actually getting some results as well. Like they weren't just talking talk. They were doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, these guys were involved. Like, it wasn't just, I think they called them like some, derogatorily referred to as bedsit trots, guys who just rock up, don't do anything but try and sell you a newspaper and also try and take over whatever's going on. These guys were in
record
there.
a podcast, things of that nature. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. These guys were in there, and it. These successful actions would lead them to found the actual Militant newspaper in 1964, and being as involved as they were in these organisations and these actions, it naturally followed that Militant was firmly embedded in the Merseyside labour movement, like the wider labour movement, and from this position, Militant was where they would begin to make their inroads into the Labour Young Socialists. As the things that they were proposing made sense to the people in Merseyside. And even non-militant members respected where they were coming from, and Militant were considered a serious strain of political thought in and outside of the actual militant tendency itself.
Sorry, I keep just hearing I just keep hearing fucking Mike Gapes whining about doing battle with the twats online.
Fucking what the fuck has Mike Gapes ever done for, I don't know, literally any working class organisation? Like, when has Mike Gapes ever been involved in an action that wasn't screaming about fucking trots in the Labour Party? Like, fuck off.
Well, he went on a lot of junkets to Saudi Arabia. That was good.
Yeah.
But you'll find that working class organisation begins at home.
So, I'm going to quote again from the book here. So, Militant then was and is a part of Liverpool's history and heritage. As Derek Hatton puts it, Militant on Merseyside is unique. Elsewhere in the country, Militant supporters may be accused of being Johnny-come-latelys, but in Liverpool, the left has had Militant working from within as a component part for 25 to 30 years. Peter Taft, Pat Well, Tony Mulhern, Ted Mooney, Terry Harrison, Militant activists from the early days, all come from Liverpool backgrounds. That's why I still laugh when I hear the nonsense talked about Militant's entryism into the Labour Party. No matter what you think of the politics of it, the fact is that the Derek Hattons, the Tony Mulherns were born and bred on Merseyside, and so was Militant. We hardly tunnelled in or parachuted down. Again, these guys were involved. They were local to Merseyside, to Liverpool. They were doing the work. But I think it's at this point, we definitely have to mention that Militant did struggle with the intersectionality that I think all of us today would consider central to any serious Marxist thought. Basically meaning they mainly focused on your typical blue collar white working class man. Definitely easily the fairest criticism you can level at Militant was that they weren't particularly interested in the support or engaging with ethnic minorities, women, or LGBTQ, etc. It was not on there. It was not on their dashboard. They did not engage in that. It was very much, as I say, your white working class man.
Shaking my head and opening the spreadsheet to mark Militant as not woke.
I mean, that's the funny thing, isn't it? This is obviously a very reasonable critique to make of Militant, not including, whole sections of the communities in Liverpool. I'll just make a note here. There was a huge, and rightly so, to do over the person that would be appointed as the head of the race relations unit by the Labour Council, and that guy was called Sam Bond. And basically, like the Liverpool Black Caucus and a bunch of other, black groups in Liverpool said this guy is shit, and they still put him in. Like, again, but the funny thing is, you also had criticisms like this from Mark Campbell, who worked in Liverpool Council's publicity unit. And again, quoting from the book here, from an interview. But I held back because other people whose knowledge, experience and views I valued, I listened to them. I also didn't like some of the tactics that they employed. It seemed a bit juvenile at the time. There was a lot of us and them within the Labour Party. I remember there was a buzzword of "You're a PB, petty bourgeois," and that was directed at other sympathisers and supporters. The militant tendency people very much looked down upon people who I looked up to. Certainly this happened behind their back, and occasionally to their face, and publicly try and undermine their importance and their involvement. Like, you are crying because these guys thought that you and the, like, essentially old guard of the people who are in, this Labour Council were shit.
I bring back calling people PB. I think that's very funny. Spent my afternoon on Twitter calling Paul Mason a PB. But yeah, it is. I mean, look, essentially, it is one of these things that just happens because it's just people. Like, you always get weird little cliques of people who look down on people and, try to, whisper behind their back. Like, I'm sure in their own way, like, people in Militant did the same to other people and, like, whatever, and then everybody else got called a trot. It's just kind of, like, endemic to people. Like,
yeah. But, eventually Militant would have a small but far from insignificant number of councillors, due to a strategy of taking over wards that were in decline. This led them to gain strength in the District Labour Party, which had a large influence over council policy as the council was Labour run. Or when the council was Labour run. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Tony Mulhern at one point, as DLP chair, said this, and again, I'm going to quote again from the book because this is just too good not to include. In the old days, before we took the council, you had Jack Braddock, Bill Sefton, who made very radical statements. When they were elected to power, they proceeded to break them. And when they were challenged, particularly Jack Braddock, they used to say, "Well, I'm carrying out policy," he said. "But the Constitution says we should carry out policy, but the timetabling is the responsibility of the council." Bill said, "We'll carry out your policy, but not just yet." So they would go on and on. Rent would go up. We came in. We were totally different. And that is what horrified the establishment. They said these people are making promises, but not only that, they're carrying them out. It horrified them.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Not carrying out your promises.
This is going to be exactly the lines that Starmer will take when they lose this next election to Reform, and Reform actually does like a thing or two. They will lose their fucking minds over the idea of promises being made and roughly kept.
Well, also, we were just talking about the fucking, Hillsborough law. Like, oh yeah, you mean a promise that was made, and then all of a sudden they say, but you see, the wheels of government, they simply won't let us.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out if you're elected, you can just do stuff. They had. There were 7 militants in 1978. There were 7 militant supporting councillors on that council, and horrified, absolutely mortified at the idea that they should do stuff, and that these guys are coming in saying, "Yeah, we should do stuff as as a council."
That's all well and good, but they didn't have the OBR to deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah, oh my God, they didn't even have graphs in the 1980s and 70s. It's crazy.
Yeah. And yet you participate in the economy. Curious.
And, this is also about the time where where critics and Militant, call some of the behaviour that they saw from Militant, they describe it as ruthless and objectionable, such as making meetings drag on, formulaic motions to bore people into leaving, as well as trying to use the DLP, District Labour Party, executive to set the political agenda, calling emergency meetings at short notice and at random times. Like, it's so funny that this criticism is being levelled at Militant, because clearly the Labour Party of 2015 onwards has learned this fucking lesson.
Yeah. I was going to say, a powerful set of lessons were learned, yeah.
And also,
I mean, it's only bad if people do it to you. If you do it to people, it's good, actually.
Well, remember when fucking Corbyn did a bunch of this shit in Parliament, like, against the Tories, and it was uncouth and bad of him to be using these mechanisms that had never been used in, like, 100 years or some shit. It's just fucking... It's the same thing as it always is. It's so bad when my enemy picks up a weapon that is useful against me. How unfair.
And I think it's also important to note for context that those militant councillors were elected at a time when Labour, the Tories, and the Liberal Party had previously, in the 70s, been essentially arguing amongst themselves whether to raise public sector housing rents, 60% of Liverpool's housing stock, by the way, by up to 25% as the result of, the Tory Housing Act of 1972.
Wow.
And,
all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
wait, so
really,
25% in one go?
Yeah.
Fuck me.
There was tons of this stuff, like, double-digit percentage increases in, basically anything the council could increase. Like, this stuff is, like, all kind of in the background. Like, this is the condensed version, right? A lot of this kind of stuff was going on. But, like, this incident with the increase of the rents by 25%, specifically on re-election, Liverpool Labour leader Bill Sefton, who was leader until from 64 to 74, he proposed a 25% increase, causing the Labour council to split.
Oh,
it's like it genuinely is like the more things change, the more they stay absolutely the fucking same. Like,
absolutely. So, like, it is very funny, though, because, you've now got this extremely radical left-wing Labour council, or majority or whatever, in Liverpool. You have the Liberals campaigning against what they condemned as a Marxist Labour Party, and the Liberals, anyone who wasn't aware, is the precursor to the Lib Dems before they merged with the SDP. Famous for their leaflets then and now, because one of their leaflets featured an image of a gravestone with the legend, Liverpool Labour Party, died 1980 from Marxist infiltration.
Oh no!
How far they fell to reach Here's Corbyn's spine on a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the
I will
hat.
say that goes
Cool.
Yeah, that goes so much harder than I like the hat.
Yeah, I mean the Liberals campaigning was so effective. Like, Militant still just got essentially strengthened their position in Liverpool's DLP, District Labour Party, as well as the council itself. In the 1982 local elections, Labour stood on observably Marxist policies, while the Liberals campaigned on the slogan "Marxists out, Liberals in." Labour gained 2 more seats.
I love when the Liberals threaten us with a good time. Like,
Yeah. Also, how long does it take for Liberals to take the fucking mask off?
Yeah, and the bit about the May 1982 local elections, that was from the book, and as is this next bit, which I thought was very interesting. In 1983, while the rest of the country voted heavily against Michael Foot's Labour Party and for Margaret Thatcher, who basked in the glow of victory in the Falklands, Liverpool's voters went against the national trend and elected a Labour council pledged to confront the Tories.
So, like, even if you get almost wiped out, if you're in a council that does something good for the people that live there, then it turns out the people will reward you for it. A lesson that we should never, ever,
Yeah.
That sounds made up.
Yes, it turns out that when you say we will stand up and fight this government, even as just a single council, people respond to that. This 1983 local election was the result of, at this point, decades of work by Militant, its fellow travellers, and the broader left in Liverpool. 51 councillors were elected in 1983, although only 9 were actually members of Militant itself. Pretty much everyone else on that council, though, barring another small minority, were pretty much aligned with those militant members, even though they weren't in Militant.
I mean, one of my life goals is essentially to be a fellow traveler. I think that I've just always loved that. Like, I think that's just cool.
Yeah, and they went into this election. So Liverpool Labour, I should say, went into the election arguing that the Tory government badly mistreated Liverpool by giving them insufficient support because basically the previous Liberal council had contrived a bad rate settlement, which is used to calculate the support given to local councils by central government. So they artificially decreased spending and rates to ensure that the incoming Labour council were fucked, basically. And
council politics really is just a fucking hive of scum and villainy. It's incredible.
That's not even council politics. That's standard liberal shit. Like, look at every single thing to do with, like, international trade during the entire Cold War. It's the same shit. You fix the market as much as possible to make it so that you can point and go, look, the socialists don't know what they're doing. It's not working for this. Oh, fuck off. This is just the easy mode version of that.
Yeah, so the council declared it would confront central government to get Liverpool the support that it needed. They locked that shit up. The manifesto argued that the government had stolen 270 million from the council, and they said that in 1980 central government made up 62% of the council's funding, but in 1983 was just 44%.
And this, I wonder if this is like a thing that we will never see again, that the central government suddenly pulls a huge amount of funding from a local council and then the whole thing goes tits up. I wonder if we'll ever see that happen again.
Yeah, I mean, again,
the fun thing about history, Rob, is it's full of lessons and everyone learns them.
That's true. That's because we all love learning them. All of us, without exception.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Labour Council argued that the decreased funding was as a result of, as mentioned, the previous Liberal Council, and just to be able to meet its manifesto commitments, the Labour Council would have had to increase rates, council rates by 170%, and just to stay where they were, a 60% increase.
Jesus
so
Christ.
catastrophic increases if they were to just take it as was, right? Yeah. So this is there's also other bullshit like trying to get the previously mentioned Tony Rimmer disqualified as a candidate because even though he did not live in Liverpool, but he worked in Liverpool. Other councillors tried to get him disqualified on that basis, even though because he worked in Liverpool he was eligible. Like this is the kind of shit that is like sounds so familiar, right?
I was going to say I don't want to keep doing this, but I'm like, oh yeah, deselection at the last possible minute in favor of some insane fucking bureaucrat that the Labour HQ really likes.
Yeah, but fortunately, he was basically nothing came of it, and he ended up being elected a councillor. Now, things start getting interesting when we talk about the 1983 budget, because the council drafted a budget with a deficit of £30 million. And
councillors are not allowed to run deficits. Was that true then as well? Yeah,
I think it pretty much was. They basically refer to him as a legal budget. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But so they drew up a budget with a deficit of 30 million and demanded that the government make up the difference to replace some of the money that they were saying the government had stolen. Alongside this, they also made 7 demands. Like it's a long list. I won't read the whole thing, but basically. They demanded that the grant system be recognised as one of the causes of the deprivation in Liverpool, And there are other claims that address the unfairness with which Liverpool specifically have been treated, especially in comparison to other cities of similar size like Manchester.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. Like, like if you're getting fucked over, then just make a big spectacle and hope that helps. Yeah.
But even those who weren't necessarily directly supportive of the council agreed that their case had some merit. So this wasn't just militant councillors laying out all this stuff. This was people who weren't necessarily even supportive of this Labour council, saying, yeah, they're kind of a point. Because, again, the entire, state of Liverpool at this time. So, that was one thing. But in 1984, so, we're in the 80s now, neoliberalism is taking root. And it's determined that councils are no longer a conduit through which public money was spent on providing adequate public services as a right, as had previously been the case until about, the mid-late 70s. Instead, councils were now urged to engage in urban entrepreneurialism and had to compete with other councils to win investment from fickle international capital.
No, none of this sounds familiar whatsoever. Yeah, fuck. Urban entrepreneur, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
This is just, again, and still we have changed nothing because, I don't know, it's been a long time since we talked about it, but competing for investment was also at the core of leveling up when it was run by Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson, because that was also councils competing with each other for small pots of money.
Yeah,
I love to live in the long 80s.
It does run long, doesn't it? So I'm going to I'm going to quote from the book because I think this encapsulates sort of where we are and where they were. So, from the book. They had to do what Liverpool has done since the turn of the 21st century. Through the capital of culture, Grosvenor Estates, Liverpool One Shopping Centre, and the Echo Arena and BT Convention Centre. Note the private sector sponsorship. This is not the Liverpool Arena, but the Echo Arena. Cities like Manchester had waited in vain for the cavalry to come to the rescue in the form of a Labour government. But in the end, local business people got together with the city council and began to say, let's stop dabbing our eyes at the loss of these manufacturing industries and see whether we can't do something to get to terms with what Madam called the enterprise culture. So, there's this imposition on local councils to become identikit replicas of one another so that you can have, each city can have its own version of the O2 Arena, an airport without the airport. But understandably, Liverpool in the 80s, or at least certainly the Labour Council and its supporters, took a different view and believed that Liverpool should be recovered and regenerated through the public sector. I mean, but, in itself, that makes sense. Because even if you did want to attract international capital, why would international capital, want to set up a shop in a city that was filled with slums and mass unemployment? Even less, why would capital want to solve those problems itself? It wants those problems solved for it so that it can say, a bunch of middle-class consumers who are prepared to buy all of our goods and services.
And also, we've now lived with, a capital class that over centuries is actually turns out to be mostly perfectly fine with, slums and uneven distribution and, half of a city falling apart. That's not a problem for capital as it begins anyway.
And, the Liverpool Council told the government they wouldn't implement the cuts, that were being imposed on them. And in rejecting them, they reversed, I think it was 1,000 council jobs and created 600 more jobs. And, stuff like this engendered the local community to the council and gave the council political capital to attempt to confront the government directly. They were doing stuff that people said, this is good for our community. You have our support. We want to fight. They were doing stuff. A Labour council was doing things unbelievable. Could you imagine?
Forbidden.
I mean, indeed. So,
Can't be giving the public ideas like that. Don't encourage them, Jeremy.
So on the back of this, this accrued political capital and these sort of these successes that they'd had in building this sort of community spirit, in February 1984, the Labour councillors, including the deputy leader Derek Hatton, met an Environment Secretary Patrick Jenkin in London. Jenkin told them to get fucked, basically. And the council had brought its problems on themselves, and that instead they should increase rates and slash services. I mean, oh wow, that doesn't sound anything like what's going on right now.
What a visionary!
Yeah,
I know, right? I'd love to be read the first page of the Conservative Economics book.
But they weren't not to be deterred. The council continued with its efforts to pass a deficit budget. But unfortunately, this caused a split in the council, and seven people in the Labour Council opposed that budget. But the councillors then went on to meet with Neil Kinnock in Parliament. Again, I'm just going to read from the book because this encapsulates the whole thing pretty succinctly. The councillors met with Labour leader Neil Kinnock in Parliament, and he again suggested the dented shield strategy. It is better to comply with the government's cuts and do the best you can to preserve essential services, rather than continue with opposition and be thrown out of office by the district auditor.
Oh my god, the dented shield strategy.
Yeah, how fucking lame is that? Yeah, it's best if you just lay down and die and try not to kick up too much of a fuss.
I think he should just get in the sea.
Well, it's also shades of the Democratic Party in the US today. It's like what they're doing is just like, it's the same dented shield thing, just grovel and knuckle under, and then maybe one day they'll throw you a treat. Like,
wait until it's our turn and we get to deport people we don't like without any fucking, do you know what I mean, process whatsoever.
So, in the following March, a budget of £267 million was set, which was £55 million above the government target. The Tories hoped that the council would be punished for their intransigence, but this actually did not pan out. The budget did not pass due to the 7 rebels combined with the Tories and Liberals, and they attempted to arrange new votes on the budget, but these never came to be, basically because they couldn't agree on a time, and that was sort of it. But come the 1984 May local elections, the council were returned to power with an increase of 6 seats, and this cancelled out the rebels and was taken as a vindication of the council's approach, and it would actually end up bringing the Tories to the negotiating table.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you've said that you're going to do this stuff. You've had people internally say that they didn't support it, and then you just went out and got more fucking votes. And
that is why democracy should never be left to voters, because it's simply too precious.
Yeah. So this meant that the Environment Secretary Jenkin would actually go for the first time, mind you. Bear in mind, he'd been going to Liverpool every 2 weeks for 2 years to finally visit the housing stock that they had in Liverpool, the outside of the city centre, right?
Yeah, one of these central disputes that they wanted the money for, and where this whole came thing.
Yes, and again, I'm going to quote directly from the book because again, there's no other way to put this. Apparently horrified by what he had seen, famously saying, I have seen families living in conditions the like I've never seen before. They are very grim indeed, and the conditions do beg a description. So, he finally realised, we are extremely out of touch, although this wouldn't last for long. So his visit would eventually cause him to give assurances to the Liverpool Council that they would allow them to improve housing and to have an urban development program and be more conciliatory, basically. But it would seem that the councillors celebrated this perceived victory too early, as this concession was only supposed to be announced later when it had been ratified by the actual council itself, and in the long view, could probably be considered one of the biggest tactical errors the council made, along with another one which we are going to get to shortly. So, the 1984 budget drama had gone on for so long that the council was almost immediately into conflict with the government over the 1985 budget. Yeah,
that's very good though. I like that a lot. Like, we just spent so long arguing about the previous one. Oh shit! Is it Monday already? We have to start a new one.
But they were confident. They'd won these concessions, and they figured they could relatively easily win them again, provided they kept their momentum up and the support of the Liverpudlian public and the broader left. But the government would effectively renege on their promises for housing improvements, resulting in a bigger cut to the money allocated to it. They claimed they would only look favourably on the housing situation if the council diversified its approach, i.e. not just building more council houses.
Yeah.
The government referred to the council's actions as municipal Stalinism.
Excellent! Love that.
We could use a municipal Stalin right now, actually.
Little Stalins, big Stalins everywhere. Municipal Stalin, climate Stalin. Yeah.
And this new spat between Liverpool and the central government would also lead to Neil Kinnock's declaring the council a liability at the 1984. Yeah, indeed, as a liability at the 1984 Labour conference, and tensions just continue to mount. This is a very condensed version of a condensed history. There is a lot going on here, right? But suffice to say, the government were very pissed off with Liverpool, and Liverpool was very pissed off with the government. And, the government basically decided there was no point trying to negotiate due to the increasing budget deficit for, financial year 85-86. Again, because of the previous Liberal council. This is pretty much all because of these fuckers. But, at least partly responsible, I suppose. In fairness.
Liberals.
Yeah, exactly. But the government would then go on to announce further cuts to council funding, and this is when they introduced a national restriction on what councils could spend the capital receipts from council house sales.
Oh, because now we're in the Thatcher era, so they've started selling off the housing stock.
Yeah, so essentially, cuts are coming thick and fast. There's restrictions on what councils can do, more centralisation in central government. But in particular, Liverpool takes a shitload of cuts. So lots of cuts are national, but Liverpool in specific gets even more fucked than a lot of other places. And unsurprisingly, this causes even more jobs are lost in Liverpool at this point.
Because at this point, it's also like a national visible symbol of resistance against Thatcher and Thatcherite theories of political economy. So it has to be destroyed. Certainly if you're Margaret Thatcher, who's not, much as I despise her, but was not exactly weak-willed when it came to fucking destroying things she hated.
Yeah, so, Liverpool's Labour Council had been trying to, build relationships with other left-wing councils, sort of Labour councils across the country, and this sequence of events sort of culminated in all the councils that Liverpool Council were sort of in contact with having to decide whether they would refuse to set a rate at all, so a council rate at all, or to set a budget deficit. And in collaboration with those other councils, they would eventually, sort of against their own sort of the internal better judgment, opt to do nothing, i.e. set no rate at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they were forced into having to decide what they wanted to try and do, and there was like they saw this as the worst of the two options. But they were working with these other councillors they were working with. Basically, they agreed to not set a rate. But even at the end of the day, it was only Liverpool and Lambeth councils that even opted to not set a rate when push came to shove. Like all these other councils they had been talking to, but for Lambeth Council, set legal rates basically back down.
This is kind of the point where like your revolution has fizzled out, because like
it is
now you're alone and now the state is coming for you.
Yeah,
islanded alone in a stream of melts.
Yeah, it is around this point that the tide is decidedly turning against this Labour Council. Like calling them a militant council with a capital M is not fair at all, by the way, because it is, again, 9 paid up members. Everyone else was basically just there and agreed with these guys who said we should do something about how shit everything is in Liverpool.
Yeah, the cool people, the fellow travellers.
yeah, exactly. So so Liverpool and Lambeth don't set a council rate, and for this, a quote tough district auditor threatened the 49 Liverpool councillors with fines and banishment from office. Like this is like when it starts getting very serious, because eventually these 49 councillors would eventually be disbarred from office and issued a £109,000 fine.
That's insane when you think about it. That like some fucking dickhead of an auditor gets to sit in an office and like not only tell elected representatives where to shove them, but also fine them personally for daring to exercise the thing upon which they were elected. That's such a fucking British thing.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially all these guys were trying, like the central policy like that runs through this Labour Council when it gets power is that they want to regenerate and revamp and build more council houses, more like get rid of these fucking slums, like just have somewhere for people to fucking live, and they are slapped with this. And then like just add insult to injury, public opinion further turns against Liverpool because of the Hazel Stadium tragedy, which I don't know if you guys are aware of. 39
Not
Juventus fans. So I think it's in, I want to say Denmark, but I don't know if that's true. But so Hazel Stadium is a football match. 39 Juventus fans are killed, and 600 are hurt at the hands of, according to the press, Liverpool fans.
Ah, okay, yeah. So
it's one of these, right?
Yeah, okay. Like at this point, things have come to a head. The council has been stuck with like two options: either settle for a rate of 9% or 20%, and still have a budget deficit.
Mm.
In the end, like again, their hands are tied here. They decide we'll settle for a 9% rise in rates and a budget deficit of £119 million. So like this is, like that they are fucked at this point. Although there was one funny quote from the book that I'd like to read you here, which I think is just sublime in how it encapsulates the brain of like your backbench, Labour councillor in this case. So again, from the book. A Labour backbench councillor argued at the time, quote, "I'm not a Marxist. I don't even believe in all this political stuff. I just don't think it's fair. I won't vote for anything. I won't vote for anything but a 9% rate increase. Sorry."
Oh, for fuck's sake! I didn't get into this for all the politics.
Yeah, why'd you have to drag politics into it, sir? You were a councillor. So
yeah, but as a Labour councillor, we know fine well they don't go into it for the politics. They go into it for all the things and things.
So at this point, the next idea that this Labour Council has is, so in order to stay within employment law and to try to have some semblance of services still going, the council decided to try and bluff the government into making a concession of, a £25 million loan instead of the £30 million that they were demanding, as a payment, right? And that bluff was in September of 1985, where the council would issue redundancy notices to all 32,000 council staff. The plan was
this is the famous, the taxes were sent around.
This is that, yes. The plan was to use this to leverage support from the National Labour Party, who, by this point, I think we understand, were not particularly fond of what was going on in Liverpool's council.
No.
But so those redundancies would only come into effect from December, but the press didn't care about that and ran headlines as though the workers had already been sacked.
Yeah.
And at this point, they realise they've miscalculated. The reaction was obscene, right? The unions were fucking furious. Blue-collar workers more than the white-collar ones. But, broadly, unions were fucking livid. Caught completely
to be
off
fair,
guard,
it's fucking stupid as well. Like, that's... Like, you can only play that kind of brinksmanship if everybody's, like, fully on board. And if you haven't prepped people, then it's just, like, waiting for misery. Like, that's just idiot shit. Like, I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear by this point that, the political capital of the council had definitely waned, and, they'd not taken anywhere near enough, union organisers along with them, with it, like, because they basically hadn't involved them at all, pretty much, in this move. And, like, the unions occupied the town hall and refused to allow any redundancies to take place. And those, as you say, Rob, the redundancy notices were issued on the 27th of December 1985. But the thing, so infamously handed out via taxi. But, they were also handed out at work. But apparently it was quite normal for important documents from the council to be handed out by taxi. Like, that's not an unusual thing. But
no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean in the pre, whatever age, like, you would either get a taxi or you'd get a courier if, like, you needed somebody's signature, or, like, you have to, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, they sent these redundancies out with a covering letter trying to explain the strategy. It just wasn't enough. So subsequent to this, the Labour Party commissioned a report, trying to outline the options that were available regarding the acquisition of a £30 million loan. All four options were very, very grim. All of them involved sackings, like 15% rises for all options on top of the 9% that they'd already voted for.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So the council said, no, we're not going for any of those. But eventually, after continued pressure from the Tories, the Liberals, and Labour itself, to wit, Kinnock's infamous speech, a legal budget was set on November 22nd, which included £23 million capitalisation of council homes and £60 million in loans from a Swiss bank over 2 years. Like, this was the last day that this budget could have been submitted as well. Like, this at least allowed the council's house building project to continue due to deferred payments, but this was fundamentally a capitulation.
Yeah. And
that's kind of where the story starts to peter out, really. In December of 1985, it would see Kinnock begin a full swing campaign to oust anyone associated with Militant. In March 1986, the Liverpool Labour Party was suspended entirely. And in March 1987, the appeal of 47 of the councillors who were fined and disbarred, the appeal made to the Law Lords, was dismissed, and they were finally dismissed from office.
Yeah,
we all learned an important lesson, and the lesson is government can't do things. It's bad when they do.
Yeah,
yeah.
When I was reading through this, it was very, very striking how the thing that caused everyone to get so incensed was the fact that this council of, again, mostly non-members of Militant, trying to build some houses. That's it. That is the central thread to all of this. And trying to regenerate the fucking horrendous slums that Liverpool had for, decades, pretty much.
That even the fucking Tory, like the fucking, frothing at the mouth insane Tories who were in Thatcher's cabinet said, Jesus Christ. Like, that's some record-setting shit,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that after these councillors were disbarred, there would be, like, it was, I think there's the next local election. They didn't even lose control of the council, I don't think. I've not written that bit down, but if my memory serves. So, like, they died, like, the council still sort of dined off this, this militant spirit that lingered in Liverpool afterwards. And, like, the Labour right, they're not interested in you, they hate the fact that you want to do things, and they always will and always have. Do not join the Labour Party, do not try to appeal to people's conception of a future where a better world is possible, because these things are just not sensible policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about it, really.
It is shocking, like, how many times over and over again this, like, exact same struggle plays out. Like, yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I suppose it's time for some comment or commentary to cleanse the palate.
The worst words in restaurant parlance have to be "the dishes come out when they are ready" (brackets, a rival to "shall I explain the concept?). And I suspect most of us are by now completely over the small plate scam. Is that comment or commentary?
Oh. Would you
think writing a furious email right now?
No, I'm not. No. I know this is right. Like in most places that it is just bullshit, and like I fundamentally agree with that. Like, sorry.
See, reform is possible.
The commentariat is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, that's commentariat.
Yeah, I'm going to say commentariat as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Julie Bindle in The Spectator.
Ooh.
Small plates are a scam. I'm sure I read that Muslims don't pay council tax if they claim their home as a place of worship. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Is that comment or commentariat?
Really, it does make you think, yeah.
I'm saying more out of hope than anything else that this is a comment.
It has to be a comment.
Yeah, that's a comment. It's a shame, but it's a comment.
That was a comment in the Daily Mail. The little-known loophole used by second homeowners to dodge soaring council tax bills in Britain's holiday hotspot. That wasn't the loophole. The loophole was if you're selling the house or something. I don't know.
Yeah. No, of course it wasn't the loophole, because that would be fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. You can put your house up for sale and then just reject all the offers in order to keep it as a holiday home or some bullshit. I don't know. The last time a Labour government of this ilk was in power, in the 70s, the country had all the same problems. The common denominator? Weak-minded ministers enthralled to the unions. The outcome? Crippling strikes and general misery for ordinary voters. For all the talk of workers' rights and solidarity with ordinary folk, the policies pursued only ever seemed to benefit a narrow few, and rarely those who worked the hardest or contributed the most. No wonder there was a massive brain drain. Anyone who could get out did, much like the exodus of successful businessmen and millionaires today. Is that comment or commentariat?
Jesus fucking Christ.
Commentariat. Yes. Come on.
Commentariat.
Yeah. I mean, we read a whole article about, the important and successful people who are leaving. And may I once again say, get the fuck out. You can find that on the Patreon, but that is commentariat.
That was Sarah Vine in the Daily Mail.
Oh,
The The revolting bin chaos in Birmingham is a national disgrace, and it tells us exactly who actually holds the power in Starmer's Britain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. A lot. Angela Rayner, obviously, like, you know, fully enthralled to the unions by saying, please accept the deal and stop the strike.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Ed Miliband's too busy being enthralled to the Chinese, so I suppose, you know, somebody's got to pick up the slack around here.
Starmer should be careful what he wishes for. In July last year, reform overtook the Tories among 18 to 24-year-old men. This isn't really surprising. The young are more likely than not to rebel against the existing order, whatever that is. Surveys suggest an alarming number no longer value democracy, see nothing wrong with Marxism, and are drawn to authoritarian leaders. Across Western Europe, where indigenous national cultures are palpably struggling to survive, young people are increasingly voting to upend the political establishment. Is that comment or commentary?
Comment. Maybe.
No, yeah. No, commentariat, because that, you know, indigenous national culture struggling to survive is only 7 words, so like we're a bit short.
Yeah, commentariat.
That was Melanie Phillips in the Times. Keep children well away from the ballot box.
So I wasn't wrong about the fucking word count then, was I?
The children yearn for the Stalins.
Yeah. The children sound based. I like the children.
Right, this is the last one, and I'm going to give it a content warning for, well, you know what I mean, just fucking incredible Britishness, really, but and also racism. Just how the hell did it happen that Islamist gangs have taken over British jails? And worse, that a terrorist thought to be the most dangerous of them all managed to stab and throw boiling water over 3 prison guards? I'll tell you how it happened. It's because we now have a government that just needs to hear the word Muslim or Islam, and it's bending over backwards to appease. Is that comment
Jesus
or commentary?
Christ.
Commentariat.
I
When did this
really
come in?
need this to be comment, but I'm going to say commentariat.
I'm staring
gonna-
directly into the abyss. Commentariat.
You know, comment.
That was Carol Malone in the Express.
Oh.
And wait until you hear the headline.
Oh.
Hashem Abedi's sick jail attack shows what happens when you treat animals like humans.
Whoa. That shit got printed.
I did, yeah. And do you want to hear another line from further down the article?
Oh, not really.
These people are subhuman monsters who are programmed to kill.
Fucking hell.
What? Yeah.
Fucking
Well, it's a
hate
good
Carol
thing we
Malone
have
so
that.
much, like.
Effective Press Regulation Authority. That's
Yeah.
really helpful that that's there. Thank you for all the hard work that you'll do in fully prosecuting this motherfucker. Jesus Christ.
Just using the fucking, like, Rizzler thin excuse there that, like, she's actually talking about terrorists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who she means. She means the terrorists.
I'm amazed it's even
when she
that.
says
I
these
would have
people.
thought it was being even safer and saying prisoners or something. Because I'm pretty sure you could get away with that. Oh. Well, that's Britain.
Yeah.
Sorry
I'm
if
sorry.
you live here, but yeah. Oh, fucking hell. Well, that is all from us. I guess we have obviously just put out the second to last Andor episode. We'll have the last one of them out next week, early next week as well, before the second season starts. So look forward to that. It will be available to everyone. If you would like bonus episodes, they are on Patreon, patreon.com/praxiscast, and you'll have access to all the ones we've done, plus all the ones we will do, and also the Discord, which is good and a place for you to give us feedback where you ping people multiple times to take comedy guesses at an offhand comment I made. If you feel called out just now, good.
Is it allo allo?
Yes, it is. Okay, and also Twitch streams are Sundays at 6:30. Look forward to them. And also merch is available at praxiscast.tmail.com. And we will catch you all later.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.